You're talking about beginning and end, and the Bible teaches us about both. The Bible teaches us about the beginning of the universe that happened 13,000 years ago in the year 11,013 BC. And God tells exactly when that happened, and in 6 days God created this universe. And he also has a lot of scriptures that point to the end of time. And when we search through all of those scriptures, we find that it's focused on our day, that we are right near the end of time. In all likelihood, in a few years, will be the very end of the world. And God has a lot to say about the timetable of that and the character of that and so on. That's why it's so important that we read the Bible very carefully in our day, because it's all in the Bible. God wrote this long time ago, but it's always been there. But today God is opening our eyes to begin to understand it. For example, we read in Revelation. I think this is what you're thinking about, perhaps. Let me turn to that a moment. In Revelation chapter 1, we read in verse 11, Revelation 11, verse 1, I am Alpha and Omega. That Alpha and Omega, incidentally, are the first and the last letters of the Greek alphabet. And the New Testament was, in the original language, was written in the Greek language. I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And there are other verses similar, or let me see. In verse 17, he said, fear not, I am the first and the last. And I think in another place, he says, I am the beginning and the end. In other words, God encompasses everything. He's from everlasting past, and he's going on into everlasting future. God was never created. He has always existed. We can't understand that at all. Our human minds were not designed to understand that. But he is the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Incidentally, going back to beginning and end, in verse 8 of Revelation 1, God said, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord, which is and which was and is to come, the Almighty. Now, then you made reference to the 7 churches, and those 7 churches are actually typifying all of the churches that would come into existence throughout the New Testament era. And of course, the failings of these churches we see dramatically in our day, because we're at the end of the church age, when God has finally come to that time because of the falling away in the churches, the apostasy in the churches. They've lost, not only they're a long ways away from loving God, because loving God has to do with keeping His commandments, doing His will. And so now God's wrath is upon them, just as He warned that this could happen if they did not repent.